Let's look at some of the popular use cases on how DNS is configured. The most common one is most of the customers want to block malicious and undesirable content for some of the users when they are sitting in the office, but they want to allow the video streaming when they are at home. So as you could see in the policy in the bottom, the requested categories is malicious content and resolved categories. Both request and resolved categories of malicious content is always blocked. But when they come from home, which is Road Warrior as a location, video streaming is allowed. So this sort of leveraging DNS as a filtering capability or a first line of defense to define an access policy is one of the most commonly deployed policies on Zscaler platform by customers. Another popular use case is how do I block some suspicious traffic for analysis? So oftentimes, for instance, you have a user in Berlin office who is going to a risky country which they're not supposed to go. But instead of blocking, the security operations team decide to look at understanding more about that request to see if it is a compromised endpoint or not. In that case, it is important to sinkhole that capability. So we have the capability to redirect that request to a specific IP address where you could trick the end user or the compromised endpoint to assume that it is a genuine server, and you can capture a lot of insight and information to identify the threat. And you could also have very granular headers like don't allow TXT MX records for certain users. That way, you are minimizing the data exfiltration type of activity happening on those compromised endpoints. The other popular use case, as I mentioned, is with the wild adoption of DOH or increasing adoption of DOH. It's important for customers to choose what type of resolvers they have to leverage and trust, so that we could stop tunnel exfiltration and other security threats happening over DNS. So as I mentioned earlier, Zscaler provides all the granular capabilities, whether it is DNS over UDP53 or DNS over HTTPS. We have the ability to look into these headers and provide appropriate granular controls when it comes to stopping any sort of data exfiltration threats happening or leveraging these channels. Quickly, I want to talk about some of the best practices. When it comes to DNS, one of the important aspects is how do you forward the DNS traffic to Zscaler? Let's start with the policy standpoint. You set the default rule with unknown DNS traffic to be blocked. This will stop the non-DNS traffic posing as DNS on UDP53 or any malformed DNS packet. So that default is already available in the system. We encourage you to keep it blocked all the time. Another thing is to create a policy to block all commonly blocked DNS tunnels. Unless you have a specific endpoint vendor who uses this method, it is recommended to always block the common blocked, as well as obviously the unknown DNS should be always blocked. These are some of the black and gray classifications that happen oftentimes. Due to these reasons, we always encourage end users to combine with remote browser isolation technology for those websites where things are on not clearly a bad or a good site, something in the riskiness where our AIML will determine the risk and appropriately isolate smartly using AIML. So using that feature in combination with this would give maximum security posture. When it comes to considering blocking all commonly allowed DNS tunnels, there are some legitimate tunnels, as I mentioned earlier. If there is a need for your enterprise, it's better to create an exception on top of commonly allowed DNS tunnels block policy. And also always block some of the advanced security URL categories we offer as part of DNS filtering rule. It is always recommended to block this, which gives you a quick way of stopping threats right at the DNS level itself. And also, the miscellaneous category of URLs is something we strongly recommend to block along with newly registered and observed domains, because oftentimes things will happen because you have a URL category for miscellaneous to be allowed. It's recommended either to leverage the remote browser isolation to handle miscellaneous category, or along with a combination of blocking newly registered domains and newly observed domains. So these are some of the best practices to really achieve the best-in-class security offered by DNS control capabilities as part of Zscaler Zero Trust Exchange platform.